So I'd love to introduce for you Sam Hayek. He's a successful cafe owner turned consultant. Sam's passion for food started back when he was a boy in his mother's kitchen in Lebanon. He migrated to Australia and he was able to turn his passion for food into a successful cafe business, opening Hangry in Rozelle. Well, Sam moved on from that, such a success that it was, and now he runs a very successful groundskeeper cafe. He's an accomplished barista and executive chef, and now Sam wants to turn his knowledge into helping others. And works with other cafe owners and runs a successful cafe consultant business. So he wants to help aspiring businesses to create a cafe that turns a profit. Also joining us today for today's session is from Service New South Wales is John Quek. He's our council relationships officer. And I just want to share with you all, if you don't already know, that Service New South Wales does have a concierge service. So what that does is it actually supports our businesses to help you succeed. So this type of support can include anything from helping you complete the correct documentation, so to help you when you get started, and also point you in the right direction to get the support that will need to suit your needs. So I wanted to say thank you and welcome to you both, gentlemen, for joining us for today's session.
Thanks, Tanya.
So we're focusing today on running a successful cafe, and that can often be seen as a perception because we often see some people sort of busying around, grabbing a cup of coffee, and it looks like it's doing a booming business, but that's not always the case. So the first question I have for you, Sam, is can all businesses or cafe businesses be successful?
Definitely not.
So what are the things that we need to be looking at when we're talking about running a successful cafe? What are the 3 key points that you wanted to talk to us about today?
Look, there's a lot of points, but we can make it short today, and because we have limited time, and we can focus on location, concept, and management. Those are the main 3 categories that you'll be looking at, and they are all as important as each other. But there's a lot of subcategories underneath as well that we need 2 weeks to go through.
So let's talk about those 3 categories. So I think when we spoke, there's 3 key areas that we would like to look at, which is location, concept, and management. So let's start with location. What do we need to consider when you're looking at a location for a successful cafe?
Okay, location is always connected to everything around it. So when you look at location, definitely there's demography that you need to study. There's competition that you need to study. There's facilities around you. Like, for example, if you are a sit-down cafe, and you don't have parking for people to park, you're not going to be successful.
Yep.
If people are going to travel to you to come to you and park their car and grab a coffee, you're not going to be successful. At the same time, in the city, you can't put a hole in a wall and then you expect people to come and sit down and eat in your hole in the wall. So the concept has to meet with everything else.
So just talking on, you talked about demographics. So when we're talking about demographic, what are you looking at? Are we looking, and sometimes it could be the area that you live in, or if there's families, or if it's business. So does that influence, I guess?
Absolutely. If for example, a lot of cafes open in industrial areas, and industrial areas can be categorized as offices or as manufacturers. The income of a manufacturer worker is not the same income as an office worker. And even the eating habits are not the same. So we all know traders love their burgers and love their high energetic food, and while office workers mainly they love salads and they love
more
healthier options. So yeah, if you're going somewhere where there's a lot of offices, you have to cater for that, especially if they order a lot of catering as well. You got to be always facilitating for catering supply. That will add to your business and to your success. If you're in a commercial state where it's all tradies and truck drivers and stuff, you're gonna cater different to that as well.
So can I just say, with location, just say you find a lovely spot, and we'll say it's in suburbia, because right now with COVID and everything, more people are sort of working from home. How important is it that there's not many businesses around you in terms of competition?
Competition can be something very healthy if you know how to compete. So not the fact that there's another cafe or 2 next to you. First of all, the cafe shouldn't be threatened by your presence if they are confident with what they're doing, and you should not be threatened to start a business next to them, because you can be adding something to the shopping area or cafe area, but you have to differentiate yourself. Instead of go and copy what they do and try to be like them because they're successful, you're actually doing nothing here except taking away from them and then taking away from you. But if you go sit next to them and put a cafe right next door and do something different, where you give customers a variety of options, it can bring more people to them because people want to come and have your food. So if there's an Italian cafe and a Greek cafe, and I come put a Lebanese cafe there, people will love it because they have option of free.
Do you think there's more of an advantage to actually set up a cafe in an established food strip, let's say, versus actually starting somewhere where there's not much competition?
Look, I wouldn't say there's advantage or disadvantage. Again, it all depends on the concept that you're putting there. So the concept can be a successful one if you get the right concept in a busy cafe area. Like look at places with cafe strips where there's like 6-7 cafes on the street. They're all working, they're all busy. What are they doing right? They're doing something right, of course. And you might find one cafe that's not busy in the strip. You know that they're doing something wrong. So 6 cafes busy and one is not busy. They got to look at what they're doing wrong and why people are not coming in the door. And there's always a reason. And some owners, unfortunately, they're convinced that they're not doing something wrong. They know that the business is doing well, but I'm doing everything right. Why isn't people not coming? Simply because you're not doing everything right.
John, I'm going to ask you, because Service New South Wales obviously has that concierge service and deals a lot with that. So in terms of when we're talking about that, what common mistakes do people actually make when it comes to choosing a location and then they come to Service New South Wales for support?
Well, yeah, look, Service New South Wales is here to provide guidance and general advice. We can't obviously provide personalised support in looking at a specific location and giving
that's why Sam's
recommendation. Here. Yeah, absolutely, and he's perfect for the role. I mean, he's got the experience, But Service New South Wales can work with a person that may be getting into the market, has never owned a cafe before or a business, or who is new to that area and wants to understand that location and the council and what are the requirements and what are the obligations they have as a business owner. And we have business concierges who specialise in that particular industry as well as others, and we have some guided checklists that we can go through depending on the level of experience of that potential cafe owner, and whether it be someone who's really starting out new, never had a business before, needs to set up a business structure, an entity, get an ABN, register that business, and get a tax file, and all understanding all the legal requirements.
Yep.
And then also understanding things like a retail lease, because not many cafe owners actually go and buy a property and own it and be their own landlord. They need to lease that from a commercial landlord or a shopping centre like a Westfields or whatever. So understanding and navigating the requirements of a retail lease is something that we can help as well.
So just bringing that back, because obviously we're focusing on location for the first portion of it. So then I guess with location then obviously comes that premises, and how important is it for negotiating those lease agreements based on particular factors, which might be access to parking or being in a shopping strip versus an industrial area? What are some things that people should actually understand when they're choosing that location, then entering into an agreement to lease a commercial property?
Well, they certainly need to understand the zoning in particular of whether that premises they even look at is zoned appropriately, that it can be turned into a cafe. If it's a non-existing business, it's a retail store or some other premises. They've got to understand whether having a cafe and whether it's going to, if they're choosing a licensed premise and want to offer alcohol, whether that's going to be permissible under that relevant council guidelines, etc. So they've got to do their due diligence, and we can provide that information on what things they need to look at, wastewater, grease trap, all those type of things that's going to cost them if it's not already in there. And these are things that they can talk about with their landlord and negotiate, because it may be a full stop from the get-go and they're wasting their time pursuing it, or they may be able to work that in with the landlord and negotiate around the rent moving forward, taking into any modifications that may be required.
Sam, can I ask, in your experience when you're choosing location and you're obviously entering what can sometimes be extremely tricky negotiations, what do you use to your advantage to sort of, I guess, get the best deal from a commercial premises?
I would like to emphasize that pre-negotiation for a lease is one of the most important steps in starting a business, and you got to evaluate the lease depending on the potential of the business. And a lot of people do the mistake, they base the potential on the best case scenario, not the worst case scenario. And they go in and they don't meet the best case scenario, or they meet it once in a year, and they always falling behind because they did the negotiation wrong and they did the estimates of the business projection wrong. So when I'm negotiating a lease, of course, it's very important that you know that the premises is possibly a good or like some people negotiate a lease and there's no space to install a grease trap. There's no existing grease trap, but there's no space to install it. And they hit the wall and they say, okay, let's go with that grease trap. And I've seen a lot of cafes with that grease trap, but I've seen some cafes as well getting hit by Sydney Water, say you have to close because you don't have a grease trap.
Okay.
He goes the lease, he goes the business, he goes the investment. So you gotta know that you have to have enough space for grease trap, mechanical ventilation, and a kitchen, and as well enough space for people to generate money. Because if you only have 10 seats and you're paying $3,000 in rent, where are you going to generate the money from?
Yep. So when we're looking at location because we're going to move on to concept. So when we're looking at location, the things that we need to consider is obviously the space that we'll be leasing.
Yep.
We look around our demographic to see the type of people and what type of food they want. We're looking at our competition to see if there are any gaps, to see where we can actually slide in and add some opportunity. And then obviously we're going to see how people are able to get to our premises through whether it's public transport or if there's parking. So they're the real things that we need to consider.